सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यां तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So can we chant from from chapter 5 verses 7 through 12. Okay. So, starting with chapter 5, verse number 7. So you can just follow after me. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma, yoga yukto vishuddhatma, vijitatma jitendriyaha, vijitatma jitendriyaha, sarvabhutatma bhutatma, sarvabhutatma bhutatma, kurvannapi na lipyate, naiva kinchit karomiti, naiva kinchit karomiti, yukto manyeta tattvavit, yukto manyeta tattvavit, pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran, pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran, anashnan gachan swapnamashpash, this is difficult, jigran, ashnan gachan swapan swasan, ashnan gachan swapan swasan, pralapan visrijan grinhan, pralapan visrijan grinhan, unmishannapi shanmapi, unmishan nimishannapi, unmishan nimishannapi, indriyanindriyartheshu, indriyanindriyartheshu, vartanta iti dharayan, brahmanyadhaya karmani, brahmanyadhaya karmani, sangam tyaktva karoti yaha, sangam tyaktva karoti yaha, lipyate nasapapena, lipyate nasapapena, padmapatra vivambhasa, padmapatra vivambhasa, kayena manasa buddhya, kayena manasa buddhya, kevalairindriyairapi, kevalairindriyairapi, yoginah karma kurvanti, yoginah karma kurvanti, sangam tyaktva atmashuddhaye, sangam tyaktva atmashuddhaye, yukta karma phalam tyaktva, yukta karma phalam tyaktva, shantimapnoti naishtikim, shantimapnoti naishtikim, ayukta karma karena, ayukta karma karena, phale sakto nibadhyate, phale sakto nibadhyate. So I just remind everybody that this is a revision of the 5th chapter. We've already done so. So I need to sort of move a little bit more quickly and summarize things. So just wanted to remind you of that. So with that, I think today we were going to cover all these verses that we chanted today, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, to give you a composite view of what is meant by what Lord Krishna has to say in these ones and so on. So I just wanted to give you that. And won't be a detailed one for each one of them, which we have done before already. And so just wanted to do that. So to set the stage for this, up to from verse number 1 through 6 that we did last week, was to clarify the way the life needs to be led to reach our goal, and our goal for everyone in whatever life stage we are in is really to find complete freedom from all problems. This is the common element that we should be very clear about. People just don't, any kind of a dependence on other things is a cause of problems. So my dependence on the body, for example, is a cause of problem. My dependence on the mind, friends, food, illness, everything is just a cause of problem. But it so happens that our nature is independent, but we do not understand it. So all we can do is to lessen our dependence, but we are still dependent. So the only way we can really be completely free is to understand that my nature is independence. This I don't understand at the moment. And so the idea is to lead our life in such a way that my discovery of my own independence becomes apparent to me. And so this is what was talked about earlier, that really, how am I going to discover that? So the way that there's only two ways to discover it. One is that you have a trust in this message, that what message? That your reality is independence, and work towards that, with that as the goal. Reform your life so that you are a little bit more in harmony with the world until you realize that this is really the case. So this is one way. This is what is called karma yoga. And the other one is that you straight away you have a good understanding that this is the case, and you don't want to really deal with the rest of the world. You just want to study full time to understand this. This is called jnana yoga. And what Arjuna was told was that they are not alternate paths. This is a very important message in the Bhagavad Gita, which many of us really get confused about. It looks like these are alternate paths. You could do this or you can do that. That's not the case. It is a stage of evolution. Karma yoga is preparation. It is very much like saying, Swamiji Dayanand used to say that. He says it's like saying, you know what are the alternatives? Do you want to do PhD or do you want to go high school? They are not alternatives. Whether you are able to do PhD or you are not yet able to do PhD, that we have to determine. If you are able to, for example, you've studied very much, then you straight away go for a PhD. If you're not prepared yourself, then I'm sorry, you have to prepare yourself. So one is, there are stages in one's development. But this was talked about in the first 6 verses, because Arjuna started by saying that you sometimes praise this, you sometimes praise that. Which one is better? You please tell me exactly. So that meant from the standpoint of Lord Krishna that he is not ready for PhD. He's asking these kinds of silly questions. Which one is better for me and so on and so forth. That means, so he says, for you, Karma Yoga is better. So it's not like, if there is a very advanced student who has already done graduate school and so on, he's not going to come and ask you, what should I do? Should I go to high school or should I go for my PhD? That is a silly question. But it is very possible that a young kid who doesn't understand the intricacies of PhDs will say, do I have to do this? Can't I just go straight to college? That's possible. And he said, no, you have to go through this. So Krishna says, for you, Karma Yoga is enjoined. That is better for you, much better for you. The life of a sannyasi is very hard. You may not be able. So we covered all of this ground a week ago on verse number 1 through 6. So now, starting with verse number 7 through 12, what is specifically talked about is the sadhana to achieve the ultimate. What is it that I need to do is the sadhana to achieve freedom. This is what is talked about. So here, in verse number 7, this sadhana, which is meant for a householder, grihastha ashrama, for active people, this is what the Gita excels in, is kept front and center. So this whole thing is meant for an active grihastha person. So keep that in mind. So that being the case, what is said about in this is, in number 7, Yoga Yuktaha Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvanapina Lipyate. So this is what is talked about. So let's look at that. First of all, Yoga Yuktaha means Karma Yoga Yuktaha. One who has accepted the challenge and is sincerely practicing the life of action, not for the immediate pleasure, but as a puja towards Ishvara, so for your own good. This is karma yoga. So this is using karma as a yoga, not as a karma. This is a big thing, very big thing. This is not an easy thing to do. But once you get yourself reoriented, you are now progressing very fast. And what that means is that at each action, each of your next steps in life, each of your involvement, each of your relationships with others, all of that, the whole experience and so on, one thing it kept in mind, it is not just for immediate gratification, it is for a longer term progress which is lasting. And in this process, in this endeavor, you have the help of Ishvara. You have the presence of Ishvara. You have the involvement of Ishvara. and you have a recognition of Ishvara, you have a trust in Ishvara, that this is a much larger thing than just day-to-day living. It's part of a whole process. And so the karma yoga, which involves in not involving actions and reactions and happinesses and so on and so forth, but just a calmness that comes, that really this is the way I have to do it, and I don't need to just keep questioning things. Not as though I don't do anything. I am still, involving whatever needs to be done in a situation. But there is a certain longer-term trust in way things. This is what they do. So this is being talked about. So here, one important thing talked about by Swami Paramarthananda was wonderfully interesting. He said that if you look at the reality of ourselves, we are a combination of two things. One is a conscious me, and the other one is an inert set of things that are connected with the conscious things. Okay, so let's look at this one more time. So the conscious me is the one who is the initiator, the bhokta, the karta, and so on and so forth. This is one thing. And then I'm also associated with a set of inert instruments. The body is an inert instrument which reflects my consciousness, but it is basically inert. The only thing that the difference between a table and my hand is that my hand has some reflection of the consciousness. In fact, it's interesting, if you look at the hand, the nail is fully inert, whereas the skin is partially inert. This is one of the designs of Ishvara. The hair and the nail are fully inert. And the body is also inert, but it has some reflection of the consciousness. This is why nobody can touch you without your feeling. Somebody can cut your hair without your feeling, but not your skin. And so there are two things involved. Anyway, going back to it, consciousness and inertness, chaitanyam and jadam. This is a combination. Now, yoga yukta, this is the words here, yoga yukta, means the following. So this is another way to look at it is the inert world can be called as materialistic. And the conscious world should be called spiritual. And at the moment, before we start this whole process, I am totally involved in the materialistic world. It's as though I'm dealing with inertness, and I'm quite good at it. And so here, for example, taste, touch, smells, music. This is the world of inertness that I'm dealing with. And I'm totally oblivious of the Chaitanya world, which is spiritual. So the Yoga Yukta Atma, the one who is yoga, one who is karma yogi, now needs to alter this balance between inert and conscious. Increase the involvement of the conscious and decrease, because right now it's like 100 and 0. We need to get more balanced and find out, what do you mean by more balanced? What do I need to do about the spiritual? What I need to do is to inquire. Who is this conscious world? Right now I'm a specialist in the materialistic world. How do I maximize my pleasure? But right now then you're saying, who is this conscious world? What is it made out of? What are the constituents of, I know what the constituents of the materialistic world is. Not so sure about the spiritual world. So I have to think about the spiritual world. And this balance needs to take place. Let me start the inquiry at least, and a very serious inquiry, and then things will happen. So, here Swami Paramathananda says, slowly the proportion needs to change. And here there is I'm just repeating myself, we have done this before. Swami Paramathananda gave a very beautiful way of looking at it. He says, what I am is more important than what I have. Marvelous. I think this is a beautiful saying. Implications of not knowing this. The implications of not knowing that what I am is enormously more precious and full of joy. Not knowing this, all I deal with is what I have. How to get rid of things, how to accumulate things, what I have. This is the materialistic world. But what I am is the spiritual world. So this proportion slowly needs to change. This is what happens to happen. What means is an inquiry into myself. And right now I'm totally involved in the inquiry about the materialistic world. So this needs to be changed. So the first stage of the sadhana, if you wanted to look at stages of the sadhana, is yoga yukta is the first stage. And this is greatly covered in the previous chapters. In the third chapter, this was the main topic. What is karma yoga? It is nothing new. It is just being reiterated by Krishna. And so this is the first stage where you at least take the responsibility of a karma yogi rather than just a karmi. So this is number one. The second stage, which is given in this verse, is Vishuddhatma. First stage is Karma Yoga Yukta. Second one is Vishuddhatma. So Vishuddhatma here, the word Atma doesn't mean the real Atma. It means the mind. So sometimes these words are used interchangeably, and that's what confuses. If you're just looking at, supposing you are reading the book by yourself, it's very possible you may not understand the full meaning of the word Atma here, because Atma cannot be made pure. It is already pure. You cannot purify the Atma. But here Vishuddhatma means a purified mind. And what is a purified mind? It means less dependent on other things, more at rest with yourself, less concerned about results, which gives rise to disappointments, even anger, confusion, and more desires. And so the whole life of dependency from outside is endowed with these defects. Whereas a discovery of what you already are has none of these defects. The only defect is you don't know. It's a big defect because you're not sure, who am I? How can I be happy by myself? Don't I have to get some agreement from outside? This is what Swami Dayananda used to say that. He says, if you look at the teenagers, teenage is a very vulnerable age. Why? Even psychologists know this and so on. But in the words of a Mahatma, he was saying, because he observed a lot of people and so on, he says the teenage is a very vulnerable one. Why? Because they are not sure of who they are. What is my identity? What am I good at? And in the middle of that, the parents are heavily criticizing them all the time. You didn't make your bed today, and you were supposed to do this yesterday. You didn't do that. Homework, you're behind. You're very critical of everything is just being criticized. So they are really upset about things. In between them, there is a friend, sometimes of the opposite sex. So if you're a girl, you meet a boy, and the boy says, "Oh, you are so beautiful. I love you." But she says, my mom thinks that I'm not making. He says, moms are just like this. They also tell me the same thing. Don't listen to them. You're perfect the way you are. She says, really? I'm okay? Yes, you're perfectly okay. And so now she says, okay, when can we run away together? So here's the thing. If you are given a reflection on the fact that you are okay the way you are, this is a very beautiful thing. Very beautiful thing. I don't need anyone to tell me, criticize me, and so on. So the Vishuddhatma is a teenager-like person who has grown up. Because when we are, it doesn't mean that just because you and I have become 60 or 70 years old, that we have really grown up. Our bodies may have grown up, we have become old and so on and so forth. Deep down below, you have still the same insecurities of a teenager. What do other people think of me? Or you're not happy with yourself. You need, in the words of Swami Dayananda, validation from others. Beautiful word. You need validation. You're not sure of yourself. So Vishuddhatma should be defined as one who has started the path of being less dependent on the validation from outside and more in tune with what you are. Self-acceptance, self-appreciation is what is called Vishuddhatma. This is the definition of Vishuddhatma. And all of us have to need to do that. And this is also the very technical word for this in Vedantic terminology is Vairagya. is Vairagya. So Vairagya is the opposite of Vigataha in the etymology of Sanskritam. Vigataha raga yasya, from whom raga has left. Raga means a complete dependence on outside things. So this is the definition of Vishuddhatma. More to be said, but again, I may need to go on. I may not be able to finish all these. Then is Vijitatma Jitendriyaha. So here it's very interesting. The word Atma with Vijitatma refers to the gross body. Just a little while ago it was Vishuddhatma that refers to the software, which is the mind. Here Vijitatma refers to the hardware, which is the body. So Vijitatma means you put yourself as the master and the body is your follower. You don't follow the body's requests. The body says, this is what very, very often it would be that where you are hungry and you eat, and then the body says, no, I am still hungry. You've already eaten 2 rotis and 3 rotis, and the doctor has also told you just eat 2, no more than 2, or preferably only 1. But your body says, I am still hungry. And then you say, it's okay. Let the doctor tell, it's okay, I can just follow you. This means you're under the control of the body. So here, Vijitatma means one who has conquered and said, no, this is the way. This is an external thing also, just like you have Vishuddhatma, where you are under the control of outside things. The body is also controlling you. And so the next stage will be Vijitatma and Jitendriyaha. That same thing your sense organs also says. I think I want very tasty food. This is one of the biggest issues. I tell you, one big progress in life would be if you eat based on healthy reasons rather than taste reasons. Big thing. So that's when one should just start. And anyway, so that's just an example of Jitendriya. And so here Swami Paramarthananda made a very beautiful thing. He says, be a master of everything that you possess. Anything that you have. Remember we talked about that what I am is more important than what you have. So similarly here also means that what I have can be important to you. It's not saying that it's not important. Your body is very important for you to make the progress. Your mind is very important. But so is your car. Car is an important thing. And so if you really master the ownership of the car, in the sense you keep good care of it, and get a car which is functionally useful to you, not just in looks, then you are the master of the car. Similarly, a body which is healthy, a mind which is healthy, is indicative of your mastery over it. You say, this is how much I'm going to eat, this is how much I'm going to exercise, and so on. On the topic of exercise, it was interesting. I think I was telling you this, that a student of mine gave me this Fitbit just about a month or so ago. And she's a She's an official she's a senior person at Fitbit. So in her kindness, she gifted me with this. And at the same time, on this recent tour, a friend of mine who was a nephrologist in Santa Cruz, and he is, a nephrologist means people who deal with very severely diabetic people and so on. So he was telling me that he has discovered in the last 5-6 years or so some research which says that if you walk for a mile after each meal, a mile means about 20 minutes, 22 minutes, something like that, your body will be much healthier. Your blood sugar goes down, your weight goes down, all kinds of good things happen. So he was with me in this trip. So I made a resolution. And I think one of the problems that I have is that I work out every day. I go and do a lot of aerobic exercises and so on. Every day I try to do that. But after that, I don't do much walking because I feel that I've done it, I've exercised. Mistake. You need to walk much more than you do, and preferably after a meal. I made that resolution about a month ago, and every day now, and with the help of this Fitbit. So the goal is 10,000 steps a day. And last night also, at about 8 o'clock or so, I felt that I only 8,000 steps. So and I walked for another half a mile or so at about 8 o'clock last night. So it's good. So now I feel I'm the master of the body. A little bit more mastery over the body. I know when to do, when to stop. And it affects your whole life because now when I'm eating also I'm more careful and so on and so forth. This is what is meant by Jitendriyaha Vijitatma. So just on those things. Then the last one he talked about is Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. So the first stage of the understanding is that I am conscious different from the body. This is the first stage. Remember we went through this where you say the electricity is different from the appliance. Fundamentally different. What does it mean? If the appliance breaks and is not able to reflect the electricity, it doesn't matter to the electricity. So it's very interesting. Right now, I am not able to distinguish between the Atma, which is consciousness, and the body, which is inert, because I feel that two of them are the same. I am the body. So that means that the electricity and the appliance are all the same. And it's like the electricity who feels that I am my reflection in this appliance. And if the appliance breaks, you feel I broke. Not the case. You are in fact completely independent. So this is the first stage where you do the viveka, and it requires a lot of thinking. Where you do the viveka, that the nature of the Atma is not something that I can get broken. I am independent of it. This requires a lot of inquiry. This is the first stage. That I am the consciousness which is different from my body. And this was all discussed in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita very elaborately. Very elaborately. And so, this is the first stage. The second stage is that I am the consciousness behind all bodies, not just mine. So, in the understanding of the waves of an ocean, again, it's a good way to look at it. A particular wave is not a happy wave. Why? Because it knows it was born recently and has an idea that it's going to soon disappear. Not a happy camper. And so there is a guru wave. He says, "What's ailing you, my friend?" He says, "What's ailing you? Is it very clear? I have such a transitory existence, and even while I'm there, I can see death approaching." I was telling, I don't know if I'm doing this class or not, it's a very beautiful Western saying which says, life is a bitch and then it ends. It really is an interesting one, that first of all, the dukkha, the problems of life continue throughout, and the only thing that happens is that after that it also goes. Bad situation. So this wave says that, what are you talking about? Not a very happy existence for me. But the guru wave says, wait a second, what are you talking about? Where is your identity? He says, what do you mean by what's my identity? I am a wave having this shape and so on and so forth. He says, no, the identity is with your content. The shape is just something which is reflecting your your content. You are the very water. It takes a lot of thinking and discussing and so on. Finally he says, wow, you're absolutely right. I am the water of myself. I am not the wave. I have a body of a wave, but I really am just a water. This is the first stage. The second stage is, you don't look upon the other waves of the ocean as separate from yourself. Why? Because you feel I am the same water for their bodies as well. This is what is meant by Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. That I am not only my own Bhutatma, but Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. I am the very consciousness. And so this is a major understanding. And the whole view changes. Anyway, so this is the next stage. This is all of the last stage of a. So the first one is Yoga Yukta. Second one is Vishuddhatma. Then Vijitatma Jitendriya. Then Sarva Bhutatma Bhutat. Kurvan apina lipyate. Kurvan apina lipyate means that you can imagine the thinking of this wave who is now become a wise wave. It is still a wave. Nothing has changed. It's still going to disappear and so on, but not really disappear, because his identity is now with a non-disappearing content, which is the water. And then the joy of living starts, because it doesn't matter what happens to him. Kurvan apina lipyate. He is not not affected by what is happening to him. Completely different vision altogether. So this is what Krishna is saying. Then this is now expanded in the next two verses. This is one of Swami Dayanandaji's favorite two set verses. Naiva kinchit karomi iti yuktaha manyeta tattvavit. So this tattvavit means the knower of the reality of himself or herself. Manyeta, he says, I don't do this. This is happening with the body and mind, and I am free of it. Whatever I'm doing, pashyan, I'm seeing, or I'm shrinvan, I am listening, or sprishan. So these are all what is called current, passive, what's the construction? It's called continuous passive construction. Doing, like listening, I was reading. While I'm listening, I'm also reading. So this kind of a construction is what is done by Pashyan Shrinvan. While I am seeing, I'm aware of the fact that I don't do anything. While I am listening, Shrinvan, Sprishan, while I am touching, Jigran. So the first one is the first verse, number 8, is the Jnana Indriya, the 5 Jnana Indriya, the instruments of knowledge. The second one, which is 9, is Pralapan, Visrijan, Grinnan, Unmishan, Nimishan Api, is the Karma Indriya. While I have the instruments of knowledge or the instruments of action, in both cases, I don't get confused because the I remains the same. It's not as though the I also changes. No, it doesn't. It does not. That's not clear to me yet. I understand that. It will take a while for me to become very clear about it. But this is a fact that I should set as my goal. So this is the next stage of that. Naiva kinchit karomi iti yuktaha manyeta tattvavit prashyan pashyan shrinvan sprishan jigran ashnan gachan swapan shwasan. Shwasan means what I'm breathing. It's a very beautiful meditation that one can do. Really, in fact, I would say that out of all of the actions that are happening, the one where you can see your non-involvement, what is called asangatvam. Asangatvam means non-connection, is very beautiful when you do the meditation on breathing. And I was telling the earlier class also that when this was first pointed out to me, the presence of Ishvara's power was most apparent to me when I was meditating on my breathing. How? So what you find is that the whole process of breathing in and breathing out is automatic. It doesn't involve you as a person. Not like though you're saying, I'm breathing in, now I have to breathe it out. No. What a beautiful presence of Ishvara. In fact, this is what is called pranaha. Your very life is automatically given to you without any involvement. So you can say, I am. independent of the breathing. And you can modify it to a certain extent. You can alter the breathing to a certain extent, but not much. In fact, the interesting thing is, as you know, they say no one is able to commit suicide by stopping their own breathing. Not possible. So, people that contemplating committing suicide, they think about how should I do this? And they all use different methods. Somebody wants to jump it from 9-story high. Somebody falls into the ocean from Golden Gate Bridge, or you hang yourself, something. You cannot do this by at the very end, possibly. I don't know what will happen. You will become unconscious, and your fingers will become, and then you will become conscious again. You cannot even commit suicide. So it means that your total non-involvement with Shwasan, the last one, and also with others, Pashyan, Shrinvan, etc., etc. It is a fact. Your eyes are seeing, at the best you can do is close them and open them. In both cases, while you are seeing, you are unchanged. You are the same person. And also for the other ones. So, Indriyani indriyartheshu vartante iti dharayan. He says, let this thing go on. The indriyas are grasping their respective fields of action. You just observe. Right now I feel that I am the one who's doing it. I'm closing my eyes, I'm opening my eyes, I'm watching, I'm talking, I'm listening, so on and so forth. It is really just the body doing it. The mind and the indriyas and so on, they're getting engaged with each other. And yes, there may be some seeming connection between them. As long as I'm alive, there is some seeming connection. But it's a seeming connection. There is no real connection. So there may be a connection between electricity and an appliance, but hardly any. Really speaking, when you really come down to it, they're completely independent from each other. So that's what these two verses, number 8 and 9, talk about. One commentary here. So Adi Shankara also has pointed this out, that there are two kinds of abhimana. Abhimana means identification. The whole question is that of identification. Abhimana is the essence of the problems of life. What is abhimana and what is identification? I gave you one example about the wave of an ocean just a minute ago. So the wave remaining the same, where is your identification? If the identification is with the form, it's one thing. But if the identification is with the content, it is completely different. So similarly here also, our conduct in life, our experience of life depends very much on our abhimana, our identification. That I am a Republican or a Democrat or Indian is a identification. Basically, you are a human being And then you start to identify with parties, with situations, and so on. And that governs your behavior. It's all identification. And so here Swami Paramathananda pointed out, in the technical language, there are two things involved. One is called dharmi abhimana, and the other one is called dharma abhimana. Dharmi abhimana means that the person that has the dharma is called dharmi. Dharma means that some qualities, some guna. And the one that has the gunas is called dharmi. So here's what happens. I feel that I am a living human being. Living human being. I don't feel I am the Atma. I do not feel that I am the very consciousness. But I am a living human being. This is called a dharmi. Dharmi means the one who has all the qualities. And you ask around, you're a human being, right? He says, yes. There's no question about that. We are all human beings. So that is a done deal. It's very well ascertained, no questions about that. Now, having seen myself as a human being, as opposed to an Atma, in other words, like I'm an appliance, whatever happens to the human being within the kinds of dharmas happens to me also. To me also. It's all a question of really an identification in that sense. So here Swami Viditatmananda had given this funny example. I think I've told you that before. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself. But if there's some new people, I thought that. So, people have these sometimes strange ideas and so on and so forth. You have these subjective feelings and so on. So there was this man who was married. And all of a sudden, he told his wife, I don't want to go outside. I'm just going to be staying at home. So she said, why? What's the problem? He says, don't you see that there are dogs outside? And so he says, so what's the problem? There are dogs outside there. He says, no, you see, I am a cat. And I cannot go outside because the dogs will attack me. Mm-hmm. So she says, what are you talking about? You're not a cat or anything like that. He says, yes, I'm a cat. I'm absolutely a cat. So she tried a few times. Finally, she called up the psychiatrist and said, sir, I have a problem. My husband thinks he's a cat. And that's okay, but the fellow doesn't do any work. He just sits there and eats. As a cat, he needs to be fed. So the psychiatrist said, okay, just put him in a car and just bring him over to me. So he sat down and he said, sir, what's your problem? He says, I don't have any problems. I just think I'm a cat, and I am a cat, not I think. I'm a cat and I cannot. He says, okay. So he had a pet cat. So the psychiatrist did. So he told the cat, he says, okay, now, do you look like this one? He says, no, I don't. Do you look like me? He says, yeah, more or less, I look like you. And I'm not a cat. So whatever you look like, that's what you are. That is the jati. That's the family that you should. You're not a cat family, you are a human family. The person said, that is a good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah. I think you're right. So the cat, he pinched the cat and the cat said, meow. So he pinched the man and he couldn't say meow. So he says that's another reason, that is a dharma. So that's a dharmiya dhyasa. And dharma dhyasa is that you cannot say meow. Your voice is completely different than the cat's voice. Person said, sir, thank you so much for really convincing me. I am now free. So this woman wrote him a big check and said, thank you, a wonderful. He went home and so on and so forth. So then he had a big meal at home. And so his wife said, okay, shall we go for a walk? He says, I don't know. I don't think I can go for a walk. She says, what? After going through all this and so on and so forth, why? He says, now I think I know I'm not a cat, but what if the dogs still think that I'm a cat? So she says, oh my God. He says, we laugh at this, but this is our situation. This is our situation. We think we are a human being. And the Vedanta and Shastra comes up and he says, you're not a human being. You are not an appliance. You are the electricity. You are the Atma. Don't you see this? And you say, okay, tell me about it again. So he goes through this, first stage, second stage, Vichudatma, and then Sarvatma Bhutatma. And he says, oh, you're right. I am not the jati of a human being. I am the jati of consciousness, which is the same as the Ishvara and so on. You are right. Absolutely. Okay, got it. So he says, okay, all done? I can't understand it. Then the next thing you know is you are again acting as a human being. Getting angry, getting upset about small things. So then he says, what's the problem? What's the problem? Didn't you see that? He says, I know, but how would others look at me? They still think of me as a human being. I can't convince everybody else. That means I can't convince myself also. Same situation, really. So really it's a question of identification. We have to really look into that. Anyway, so I thought that I would bring that up. So here one good advice in this in this manner. Hold on just a second. Let me see that Yeah. So here one good advice is, in the verse number 10, Brahmani adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate nasa papena padma patra ivambhasa. Padma patram ivambhasa. So, the English translation of that is, the one who performs actions, giving up attachment, offering one's action into Brahman, is not affected by sin, just as the leaf of a lotus is not wetted by water. So, the key thing here to see is objectivity versus subjectivity. This is, I think, a good concept to underscore what this verse is saying. So what happens is, so in that funny example that I gave, which is the man thinking that he is a cat, is the ultimate in subjectivity. Some kind of a crazy idea that he had. How he came about, we don't know. But this is a completely subjective conclusion. And what do you mean by a subjective conclusion? That means a conclusion which is not shared by others. Nobody else thinks of him as a cat. He alone thinks of himself as a cat. This is called as subjectivity, ultimate subjectivity. So similarly also, we have our own subjective ideas. Who am I? Others may not think that. Others may not think that, but I think that. And that idea about the teenagers that I talked about is the ultimate in subjectivity, because the teenagers have some fears. Others don't like me. Because the parents criticize them for not making the bed, they think that I'm a bad person. And all kinds of subjectivity happen, when in fact that is not the case. So now what happens is, through this subjectivity, in my dealings with people, I have disappointments, resistance, protests, anger, depression, all those kinds of things happen. If I go into subjectivity, these problems become mine. If I go into objectivity, meaning accepting the laws of Ishvara, that it is not as though I am being singled out for punishment. This is the law of the existence. If I have a problem, because there was a reason for the problem, and it is for me to solve it along with the help of Ishvara. This is objectivity. So I put my trust in Ishvara. Here, Brahmani. Brahmani Adhaya means Ishvara Adhaya. Very little difference between Brahman and Ishvara. We'll perhaps talk about that some other time. So means that you rely upon the larger structure of the world and don't get too upset about what is happening to you personally. If you were to do that, wonderful things will happen to you. The force of all these problems, anger, depression, will disappear. And so, Brahmani Adhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha. Without really looking at every stage and maximizing your own pleasure, if you just act on the basis of this longer term, overall view of the world, Lipyate nasa papena padmapatra mivambasa. So padmapatra here given is that the lotus leaf, which is actually sitting in the mud, but it is not tainted by it. As soon as it lifts up, it is as pure as ever. And this is the same example given in our when we have these vigrahas of Shiva. So the Shiva has these serpents around him. I think there was somebody had given a question about this, and he is sitting in some kind of a cremation ground. So that means that in spite of all of that, there is absolutely no connection. He is within himself, untainted by all these dangerous looking things around him. So if you do that, if you have a sense of objectivity, you become an island unaffected by the external forces. That's the meaning of this verse. Brahmani Adhaya Karmani Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha Lipyate Nasa Papena Padmapatram Ivambasa. So this is one number 10. Let's go on to number 11. Here the commentary given here by Swami Paramarthananda is, Brahmani here means Saguna Brahma. So this is the Ishvara, which is the structure of the world, not the Nirguna Brahma, which is the very reality of yourself. You see this? So this is like electricity and an appliance. So the electricity is the Nirguna Brahma, and the appliance is the Saguna Brahma. And so an appliance also, before the electricity recognizes that I am different from the appliance, you should have a healthy relationship with all the appliances. Let the appliances stay in the structure of the electricity. Let them not break down. You know, like for example, sometimes you put too much current into an appliance and blow the fuse. There's no need to do that if you just have. But if you really want to do that just to prove your independence, you can. But until you are sure about yourself being electricity, have a healthy relationship with the appliance. So that is, the appliance is called Saguna Brahma, whereas electricity is Nirguna Brahma. So here he says, Brahmani adhaya karmani, means that have a healthy relationship with Saguna Brahma. This was the comment that we made. Another thing, very good thing to hear pointed out is that this process of discovering yourself can be seen to be in 3 stages. One is a trust in the world. And here Swami Dayananji used to point that. He says, you know, when a child is first born, the inherent thinking of the child is trusting the world. So if somebody gives a candy to the child, it just takes it. And in fact, the child gives the candy to someone else, says, okay, you also take it. Then slowly the trust is consciously broken by the parents. The parents say, listen, do not take the candy from a stranger. But the child says, why? Who's a stranger? You know a stranger? The one you don't know. Like you know me, right? So he has to be taught who's a stranger. And then says, don't take it. And probably for good reason. But anyway, pretty soon, the trust with the world is broken. And this has to be repaired. So the first stage of emancipation is to slowly rebuild the trust with the world, number one. Then the next stage is, so this is what is called world dependence. The second one is God dependence. God dependence means that yes, there is a structure, there is a person who's taking care of it, and so on and so forth. The third stage, the final stage, is self-dependence, which means independence. So this is the stage that we should think about that. Then a very good understanding of the word Sangam Tyaktva. Very beautiful explanation. Sangam Tyaktva means that having given up the sense of dependence. This is what it means. In real life, what does it really mean? So what has been explained by the Acharyas is devoid of unnecessary anxiety. In other words, so what happens is that when you begin something, you are now, let's say you want to do something, a new endeavor, new initiative. So in doing so, there are two factors involved. One is your functional readiness for the job, all the requirements for the job. The other one is just pure anxiety, emotional anxiety. What's going to happen? What if I fail? And so on and so forth. And so you dissipate your power of doing things in these two areas. So Sangam Tyaktva here means do not spend too much time on the anxiety. Just do the best you can to do the job and trust in the system to protect you. And if it doesn't protect you, then it doesn't protect you. It's okay. You can just but reorient your emotional energy towards doing a good job. I think when we were covering this, I gave you this example, so I'll repeat it. It was something that is stuck in my mind. So Swami Paramarthananda was saying that suppose you are planning a airline trip. Okay? In fact, it's a real case because I used to go sometimes between San Diego and San Francisco. And so now you have to choose which airline to go for. Okay? So there you have to think about it. You have to do some research to find out how often are these airlines on time. When do they cancel? Because now, the latest thing is that if your ridership falls below some 80% or something, they cancel the whole thing. And they'll give you some adduce, the pilot was sick. And no, he was not sick. He was told not to come because there was not enough people for it. So you have to do some research on this. So now if you go with Southwest from San Diego to San Francisco, you find that they have a flight one every hour in the morning 2 or 3 times. Versus, let's say, United, that only has one flight. So your homework should consist of finding out which airlines is more likely to take me there, and if they fail, one is the next flight. This is all objective, functional. But to worry about it, what's going to happen now, and now in spite of that, supposing there is a cancellation, this is the way things are. You did your best, and just be devoid of any anxiety. Something false, something happened, it's okay. It's okay, these things happen. Nobody is perfect. This is what is called Sangam Tyaktva. So the meaning of Sangam Tyaktva means devoid of unnecessary anxiety. That's really what it means. Then the last verse, number 12, that we were going to do, very beautiful and an important verse. Kayena manasa buddhya kevalaihi indriyaihi api yoginah karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. So here means yoginah karma kurvanti. So this summarizes the fact that the first stage of your seeking the peace of mind is Karma Yoga. It's almost like the first aid, the treatment of the symptoms. But it is an important thing. You have to do this. So this is this seeking a peace of mind. And Jnana Yoga, which comes later, is the absolute peace of mind. Karma Yoga is the relative peace of mind, and understanding Nirguna Brahma as myself is the absolute peace of mind. And if you can straight away jump to the absolute peace of mind, be our guest. Try it. Because that is our nature for all of us. Chances are you are not ready for it. Your own mind will set some impediments. So here Swami Maheshananji had given, and I had talked this to some of the classes, I don't remember this so well. He said, here's the thing. At this moment, the Anatma is, it's almost like, there is we were talked about this balance a little bit earlier. So it's almost like the Atma is so weak in ourselves that it doesn't really help us. I'm totally involved with the Anatma. And the process that needs to happen is to trust the value of the Atma and slowly make it assert itself. That is the skill we have to do. Because everything has been told to us, this is what it is. But either I don't trust it, or I'm confused. Whatever it is, I am not allowing the power of myself to assert itself. Therefore, I'm just begging for a validity from outside. Same thing as we talked about earlier. So this is what it is. He says, slowly the skilled people are able to use their kaya, means the body, manasa, buddhi, kevalaihi indriyaihi api. They allow themselves to be unattached to all those kinds of things and slowly discover the independence of themselves. This is what is called nishtha. And in fact, I'm sorry, I was talking about number 11. So I'm confused between 11 and 12. So kayena manasa buddhyaihi, that is just the instrument of doing that. Then yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti naistiki. And so the final stage is that you are really able to discover yourselves and you are able to assert the power of the Atma. So ayuktaha kamakarena phale saktaha nibadyate. I didn't quite finish it, so I'm running out of time. So I will touch briefly on number 12 next time, and then we will go on to the next stage. So with that, I'll close it. Leave some time for some questions. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Questions? Any questions? That's it.
How should you behave that you should react or let, like Arjuna, he said you have to do this, and or you should say Ishwar is doing everything and let it be like that. What is the thought?
So really both are important. So one thing one we should understand is that the human being, the jiva, is also the expression of Ishvara. So when the whole creation takes place in the beginning of a kalpa, it is said that Brahman, Ishvara, infuses itself through all the people. And so your and my thoughts, your and my bodies and so on are the presence of Ishvara through me, through my instruments. My thoughts are also really empowered by Ishvara. So in that sense, they say this is what the Gayatri mantra is. It's a very beautiful, important mantra, the Gayatri mantra. Bhūrbhuvah swaha tat savituhu varenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo naf prachodayat. Here, the main reason for the Gayatri mantra is, may you express yourself through my thoughts, and may my thoughts be useful to me. May they be good prachodayat, means may you impel me to follow the right thoughts. So in that sense, my role also becomes important, and Ishvara's blessings in making sure that my thoughts are going in the right direction are also important. This is an interesting thing. I remember Swami Dayanand had given this example, and a lot of the other acharyas also. He said, when you, supposing you send your offspring to a high school. High school is a very interesting thing because in earlier people are somewhat innocent. In high school people can get into trouble. You have people who do drugs and so on. It all starts at that age, So he says when you send your offspring to a high school, it is not possible that they only deal with good people. Because in a class you will find both kinds of, some people that are good, some people that are not so good. Okay? And you have to have a same class with everybody, you'll be sitting next to them and so on. But then the question is, who are you going with after the class? So you can be nice to them and say, hello, how are you? Good to see you, this, that, or the other. Keep your distance and so on. But you don't have to follow them, because the bunch of people, I remember when my younger son went to Gun High School, he used to tell us there was a group of people who would carry some beer bottles on the side, and after the class they will all assemble there. And they would invite others and come and join us, because whenever you have something bad going on, you need more company, just to make sure that, good people, they say, I'm okay the way I am, I don't care. So Swamiji used to say that it is important for you not to teach your children that you cannot avoid the company, but do not follow them. Similarly, we get thoughts that are both good and bad in our mind. And that's our minds are all high schoolers. But what you follow them, it depends upon you.
So should you be upeksha? or you should, if they're doing wrong or
until you are sure of yourself, follow good thoughts. So this is the Saguna Upasana. Saguna Upasana means that you see the reality of the world up to a point and follow those directions until the Nirguna becomes very clear. Then you don't have, then you upeksha, then it doesn't matter.
That is what Vyavahar, in the Vyavahar, relative reality you have to live.
That's what I'm saying, that in the relative reality, in the Vyavahara, do it in such a way that you don't look at it from your own immediate perspective. You just do it so that there is an overall sense of Vyavahara. Do the best you can, but don't get too upset about it. Maybe we'll talk more about this and so on. Yes?
So this is the first time I'm actually asking a question.
Okay.
So, and if it's naive, I'm so very sorry. So, what exactly is the difference between Saguna and Nirguna Brahma? And which, is one superior to the other?
No, it's not that. The Nirguna Brahma is Satyam. And Saguna Brahma is Mithya. So the Mithya by itself is not there, but it takes the help of the Nirguna Brahma to become Saguna Brahma. So in the parlance of the wave of the ocean, so or the, let's say, that's another one example would be the ornaments, golden ornaments. So a necklace is Saguna gold. And gold is Nirguna gold. Gold by itself without any sense of ornamentation, whether it's a ring or... And so the ring or the necklace have a functionality, have a reason, have a role. And so it's beautiful by itself. Because if you were to select what kind of an ornament to wear, it all depends on where you want it for, how much you can afford, all of those kinds of things. But the Saguna Brahma, which is the ornament, is relying upon the gold, which is Nirguna Brahma. So the question of, this is not a comparison of which is better or anything like that. It is a relative matter of what is what. Both. So in the case of the Vyavahara, of the transactions, then your understanding of the guna, the mithyatvam, is important. In other words, for example, which you say that, so for example, when you give gold to someone, you give it in the basis of what are you going to do with it? What usefulness it is. That is all Saguna Brahma. That is transactions. But if you were to really look at the value of it outside of the functionality, then you have to go to the Nirguna Brahma, which is the...
In continuation to that question,
Yeah.
it's like most people concentrate on how you define this term. Even Nirguna, if you give an example, people concentrate on the term and then start finding faults. So it's like any other path you take. If you take Vishishta Advaitam, or if you take Advaitam and everyone.
Right.
The concentration is more on the fact that, if you give an example, and that example will be broken. It's like you say electricity, then people will say that okay, electricity has properties. Because concentration is more on the properties than the essential truth as which you said.
Well, I think that The example of the electricity is different because you're right, the electricity itself has a form.
Correct.
But in the case of the Nirguna Brahman, it is the ultimate formlessness, which is Satyam Jnanam Anantam, which is the very isness of it. So we'll have to talk more about that. But there it is not a question of any definition or any subjectivity or being broken down into. That is the very truth about the whole thing. And it cannot be further broken down. It is self-sufficient. It is self-existent. Svadasiddha, Swayambhu. So it doesn't require any, the only thing that happens is that you don't understand it. You don't get it. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. But by itself, it is incontrovertible. No controversy about it or anything. So we can talk about that more.
I just want to confirm, you had mentioned earlier in the class, related Nirguna Brahma is same as consciousness and Saguna Brahma is
Correct.
same as the material world.
Yes.
Just to confirm.
Yeah, that's true. But then the consciousness is also part of the whole world.
Yeah.
Because when you say a wall, it means consciousness and wall together. There is no such thing as a wall without the consciousness. So really speaking, the whole thing is nothing but a imposition on consciousness. So the only question is whether it is pure consciousness or imposed consciousness. Consciousness is always the same. And that is the Nirguna Brahma, yes. Yeah.
I have a similar question. You were talking about the ultimate subjectivity, you were referring to like teenagers. But isn't the Atma the subject itself? So I get kind of confused.
No. Subjectivity means, I don't mean the subjectivity of the subject. No, it just means the subjectivity of a person with a mind. So it's a personal mind versus what is accepted by the society. So you have your own ideas which you are not sharing with others. But it has nothing to do with the basic subject, which is a common element for both of them.
Okay.
So the references between them are separate from each other. No. Yeah. Subjectivity in that sense means arbitrariness. Yeah. Non-acquiescence from the others. It's your own personal belief, has nothing to do with reality. As we saw in the example of the man thinking he's a cat.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we will see you next week.
What happened? You shut off by itself?
Which one? Did it?
Yeah.
Ah,
Blank.
funny.
But the camera is still going on, right? It is interesting what happened.
Wonder if it ran out of battery or what?
I don't know.
We'll see whether it recorded.
Yeah. Very interesting.
I will tell Raj that,
Hmm.
and if he's able to retrieve it from the files, then he can do so.
Okay.
Otherwise, whatever is.
But this is still going on, see?
So I think that you can just press on the top to. Yeah. I don't know how to. I think that's how you turn it off. Maybe just keep.